Greetings, welcome to Ginza on a beautiful October afternoon. One of the questions that my friend Greg and we were just having lunch at Shake Shack just down the street in Yurakucho was, does Tokyo have an over-tourism problem? Greg is one of the founders of a website called Tokyo Cheapo, and we get a chance to meet and talk about stuff every now and then. And this was a very enlightening conversation. I didn't have a lot of time to be here with us today, but I wanted to share with some of my thoughts and some of the things we talked about. Like, could Tokyo actually have an over-tourism problem? I know that tourism is on the rise here, causing a lot of problems around it. I remember I just got this comment just about I guess this was about 48 hours ago. Over-tourism can ruin the town. And he was talking about Nikko at the time. Nikko being one of the great day trips from the city of Tokyo. And that's kind of true. Over-tourism can kill a town, but can it kill a city? Like, I really was skeptical on this. I know over the last few years, Shibuya has the Shibuya Halloween, which is coming up. It's going to be in the news a little bit more probably in the next week or so as we get closer to that time, where tourists go down and they descend into Shibuya in their Halloween costumes. I don't really partake into that, but it's been considered one of the issues with over-tourism. And then we're like, can Shibuya really have an over-tourism problem? Can there be too many tourists in Shibuya? And I was like, we're like, no, that's not really possible, is it? It's like, so what is the actual issue going on with over-tourism in Tokyo? Now, Japan has an over-tourism problem in some areas. We've seen that. This is kind of cool. You almost never see actual pumpkins. There's an actual real pumpkin, 41.5 kilograms. I never see pumpkins, like orange pumpkins in Japan. That's really odd. So let's go, before we get too deep into this, I asked my good buddy, ChatGPT, this question here. I know it's AI, what are you gonna do? Over-tourism, what does it really mean? Over-tourism refers to the phenomenon where a destination becomes overwhelmed by an excessive number of tourists, leading to negative impacts on the environment, local communities, and visitor experience. It is often an overcrowding and environmental degradation, strain on infrastructure, and a diminished quality of life for residents. Popular destinations like Venice, Barcelona, those are cities. Maybe areas of those cities are impacted. Maybe Venice is special. Machu Picchu, that's for sure, have faced issues with over-tourism, leading to calls for sustainable tourism practices to balance visitor numbers and the well-being of the area. But what about Shibuya? Does this fit? So I asked our friend, the AI, so I asked specifically about what are Japan's problems with over-tourism, and I asked them to list them for me, and it gave me a list of 6 places. Overcrowding at major tourist sites, famous spots like Kyoto's temples, Nara, Deer. These are out in the countryside, so I can kind of get this here. Again, how does this apply to Tokyo? All right, overcrowding, maybe to some extent here. Next one I got up. I mean, it's really interesting. Impact on local communities. Shibuya does have local community, but you have to walk away from Hachiko Scramble to really get there. So they're sort of already, even now, kind of separated from the tourism boom. Places like Kyoto, again, it's talking about Kyoto. And there's a difference between Tokyo and Kyoto, isn't there? Traditional neighborhoods are particularly affected by the rise in short-term vacation rentals. Very interesting point. I didn't think about that. All right, let's see what else did ChatGPT What else did ChatGPT talk about here? I don't want to get, somebody doesn't want to be on the video here. Environmental degradation, this is more natural destinations like the Japanese Alps, hot spring towns. I can see that. Strain on public transportation, Tokyo, Kyoto. I can see some of the impact of that because people are bringing bigger wheeled suitcases into Tokyo. But what about Shibuya? What about Shinjuku? Like, they see this stuff quite often. It also talked about cultural dilution in heavy tourist areas, traditional Japanese culture experience such as tea ceremonies, geisha performances, and temple visits. Those two, right now, are tourist attractions. So cultural experiences like tea ceremony, nobody really, Japanese people do tea ceremony like everyday life. Geisha performances is almost exclusively for tourists. So I don't really agree with that. Over commercialization of it, yeah, they're trying to make money. It's been like that in Kyoto for like decades. Overburdened accommodations, that might be something here. There's a lot of hotels and a lot of tourists, a lot of people who don't know what they're doing or where they're going. Yeah, there's lots of issues. So bottom line is, I don't think that a lot of the over-tourism really applies to Shibuya, and the issues that they have with alcohol and street drinking is not actually part of over-tourism. Tourists have been going to Shibuya since the boom started in 2014. So I don't see how it really plays into Tokyo. We've got a lot of transportation issues with luggage now. What happened to backpackers? That's another thing. We used to get a lot more backpackers. You go through Southeast Asia, you can't have a wheeled suitcase. You'd have a big ass backpack. And I don't see backpackers here. I saw them more 10 years ago than I do now. Everybody has wheeled suitcases. That's really interesting. So the kind of tourist that's coming here has changed, more casual. People who wouldn't normally look for cultural experiences are coming to Japan. I thought that that's really fascinating. So what are the kind of people? So we're gonna walk a little bit here while I talk. Who are the kind of people that are actually doing these trips to Japan? I think that has been the change. It's not over tourism, too many tourists. The issue is the quality of the tourists, the kind of people that are coming to Japan. We're in Ginza right now for those that are watching. So maybe those people aren't as good as the other people. They don't have the same kind of respect or understanding of the culture that they're going to visit. They don't know how to travel internationally. People that are traveling internationally now, or the last 5 or 6 years, are people that normally wouldn't be traveling internationally. And I'm talking from countries like the United States, where they don't really share a border with anybody, where they go for these really big cultural differences. They have the US, which in itself is such a diverse place, but they don't go like in Europe, where if you go across the border from France to Germany, it's like the differences are pretty pronounced. So we don't have that going on. We get a lot of people that don't know that coming here. China is the same thing. There's not a lot of borders in China, so when Chinese tourists go abroad, they're in a culture that is much different than Chinese culture. It's the same thing. Westerners might not see the difference between China and China and Japan so much, but trust me, after 26 years of living here, those differences are here. Hey, B. Travin writes in here, Japan in 2014 was the expensive destination on your long journey of Southeast Asia. I missed the backpacker days. Right, this is the leg. This is the leg that was the premium side, where you could stay in a hotel and get a hot shower and be able to drink from the tap water. I remember that when I first came to Japan after visiting. In Asia, Japan was maybe one of the last destinations I visited. And Brandania, mahalo. Nice to see you here. I wanted to bring you to Ginza because, again, I just finished lunch here, and our discussion is pretty fresh. But I thought that this is such a fascinating thing where we're now talking about over-tourism. How does it really apply? And I'm in Ginza right now. It is a weekday, but I don't really... I don't see so many tourists here. I don't see it overburdened. I don't see it overburdened by suitcases and people and tourists here. I just see a normal everyday scene in Ginza that hasn't changed that much. Pan a little bit slower. What do you guys think? This is a main intersection here in Ginza. You got G-Wagons in front of a Louis Vuitton store. So I don't see it. So it's hard for me to quantitate this over-tourism label for places like Shibuya, which have been dealing with tourists for a very long time. And I think over the last 10 years since the tourism boom hit Japan, it's been on the rise. It's 3 million a month now. There's a lot more hotels and a lot more understanding, a lot more English speakers, a lot more English signs, a lot more English menus, a lot more restaurants that can cater to foreign tourists than there were back then. I think they can process the amount of tourists that are coming into Tokyo just fine. In fact, I think it's elastic where they could probably take more. I don't know what the impact is on locals, but local feeling areas like Tsukiji Market, again, there are people who live in that area, including me. I feel that the tourists are limited just to that one area. They're not really going into the local areas, disrupting it. But Public transportation, that's one area I see it, but Shibuya is a victim of its, is not a victim. Shibuya is Shibuya. And I think that's crying foul. They're not suffering from over-tourism. They're suffering from a tourist quality issue. The people who are going, I like this pattern of steel. They're suffering from a quality issue where low-class people are going there and they're the ones causing the problems. You got there's disruptors. And just lazy people who don't travel, people that, oh, I can't find a trash can, so I'm just gonna throw it on the ground here. Those are the kinds of people now that are traveling. And a lot of them like to go to the vibe. They're attracted to the, like a moth to light. They go to places like Shibuya, that are vibrant places that are, you can make trouble in, drink on the street and do all this other stuff. Now you can't do that anymore, which is a direct result of this action. I don't think it's a direct result of over-tourism. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. And a shout out to the nice Canadians who stopped by, and they said, it was really funny, and not to tease them too much. They didn't know, they knew I was a YouTuber, but they still didn't know my name or who I was, but they were so polite about it. I have to say, but they knew that they were watching only in Japan, and it was part of the things that influenced their trip, and they were they're very Canadian, very nice, and they gave me an honorary Canadian patch. Jason has dubbed me an honorary Canadian, and as a result, I've learned more about Canadian politics and Canadian daily life and all this other stuff. So thank you to all of our Canadians out there. We got a lot of Canadians on Patreon as well, so I'm always talking with Alex and a bunch of other people out there. They're just good people and fun to talk to. Polite is Canada's default mode. I got no problem with that. Shouldn't it be that way? Shouldn't it be that way? I guess we can walk down the alley. Sometimes the alleys of Ginza are way more interesting than the main streets. You just never know. Why don't smaller towns just try to make anime series and try to use that to promote tourism? So this is the issue, and I'm glad for that comment here. This is a live stream, so we're getting live comments in here. The first comment that we saw here, over tourism can ruin the town, is a true comment. This is a true story. So be careful for what you wish for, because Kawaguchiko and Fuji Yoshida are small towns in Shizuoka or Yamanashi or Shizuoka? I think it's Yamanashi. And they were not prepared for the boom, especially Fuji Yoshida. Kawaguchiko maybe a little bit better, but Fuji Yoshida is like, what? Like, it's not that interesting, but a picture of retro Japan with Mount Fuji in the background created a lot of tourists that for years was a big problem. People were almost getting hit by cars. I think some people might have gotten hit by cars. If not, it was really scary for the locals who were driving. They're following the laws. They're going like 30 kilometers per hour, which is not that fast at all, and still tourists would dart out in front of them. So there's lots of issues trying to get this shot. Just a picture, why would you risk your life for that? So what they did was they put in security guards, not security guards, but they put in staff with light sticks and vests that made them look official and helped to get people off of the street to ease the tensions. And the street now has started to get a lot of trendy cafes and things that tourists like, and tourists are actually starting to stay in Fuji Yoshida, like the old retro city. And it's amazing. So they've been able to parlay this social media attention into something that I think is blossoming into a wonderful tourist center. Kawaguchiko, on the other hand, has decided to take their over-tourism problems and exacerbate them, make it worse. Like scratch the itching, put up black sheets to keep people from crossing, get bad publicity, then take that out, and now they don't have a black sheet anymore because people were poking holes through them. Look, I tried to get in touch with the mayor there. We tried to talk to him before they put in the black wall. He would only talk, his office would only talk with the BBC, CNN, and mass media news, despite the fact that it was social media that was causing the problems. So, like, I'm still kind of shocked at the way that the two different towns, and by the way, Fuji Yoshida let me film them and film their situation, and as somebody from Fuji Yoshida's City Hall came out to talk with me, they created a tourism office where the tourists are going, and they're using that to their advantage. And Kawaguchiko has the opposite thing, where they're doing old school media. They like just don't get it. And this is it in a nutshell. Those cities are 15 minutes drive away from each other. 15 minutes. And they've got radically different approaches to the way that they're dealing with over tourism. As a small town, it's from going an everyday Japanese life into a tourism city is not an easy thing for an island country, and Japan is very much an island country to do. It's really hard. It really is. So this is real, but Dennis, I love this comment. The thing is, I don't think it could ruin a city. I think cities are elastic. Cities can take it. Tokyo can take the tourism. People don't stay. It's not like we're having the illegal migrant crisis in New York City. They don't have stuff like that going on. New York's got way bigger issues than Tokyo does. And New York is pretty elastic, although we're seeing issues with the mayor and other political stuff arising, and I'm sure that that's going to turn around. They don't have any more money to house people in luxury hotels. Can't believe they were housing illegal immigrants in luxury hotels, promising one thing and then delivering another thing. Like, it's a mixed message. But we don't have those kind of issues here. What we have here is just a lot of tourists, and Tokyo can deal with that. They're used to that. Beat Tavern writes in here, Tokyo can take it for sure. New York City is full of tourists all the time, never heard of over-tourism. Ramon, exactly. I never heard of over-tourism in New York. It's a city that just sort of works. And I think, though, you know, when you think about it, and I've been here for a very, very long time, the thing is just, Tokyo wasn't really a big tourist attraction. It was too expensive. Western tourists didn't come here. It had the reputation for being too expensive. It attracted people who were really, had to come here for business or were really interested in Japanese culture. Now you're getting people who are coming here because it's the trendy thing to do. They don't know much about Japan. They don't know much about international travel at all. They think that the culture should be similar to that in the US. So when they get something like, oh, you can have a beer on the street and walk around here, it's a little bit too much for these. It's like an overload, like, what, you can do this. Now I'm gonna abuse this right. So they abuse it, and then cities like Shibuya, it's a city within a metropolitan area, ban public drinking on the streets. And it's not even a ban. What are they gonna do? They don't take away there's no penalty. So they don't quite get it. If there's no bite, there's just bark. Most of my countrymen are gonna be like, eh. And that's sickening to me, because if you're embarrassing yourself, you're embarrassing your country, and this just shows the times. I'm a lot older. I came here when there were few foreigners. I felt like my actions had consequences for the community I was in. But now there's so many foreigners that are coming here into the country, they don't feel the same consequences to the community that I feel. They don't feel the shame that I would feel. And to me, it's perplexing. But when it comes to, and that's why we talk about the quality of people who are coming here, they don't have shame. And Japanese can't understand that. And the mayor of Shibuya, the issue he's going to have this Halloween, it's going to be curious how they deal with it. How do you deal with tourists that have no shame, that are just okay to drink, and you have a guard saying, you're not allowed to drink here, please stop it. Okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? There's nothing they can do about it. There's no law, there's no penalties, you won't get arrested, no one's gonna wrestle you to the ground. The worst that will happen is you're gonna get a Japanese YouTuber who's gonna come out there and then he'll wrestle you down to the ground. Because I've already seen that. There's some really militant Japanese YouTubers out there. Maybe their heart is definitely in the wrong place, but they wanna keep Japan the way Japan is, as do I. We just have radically different ways of doing it. I don't know. What do you guys think in the comments? What do you think about over-tourism? Is Shibuya a victim or not? I don't think they're a victim. I don't think Tokyo's a victim. I think there's some neighborhoods that might have some issues, but they have to learn to evolve from this. And all right, the last thing I want to say on this, it's an interesting debate, and I wish Greg was here. I'm trying to get Greg to come in and do a podcast with me. So maybe we're gonna get, he's been here as long as I have, maybe a little bit longer. But yeah, again, he's the founder of the tokyocheapo.com site, a good friend of mine. We've been talking about stuff like this all the time. Our businesses depend on it as well. And I do think that he has a lot of data-driven information on this. And I think let's use some of that data and do it into a podcast. So let's see if we can get Greg on maybe twice a month to talk about some of this data-driven information. Not Greg Lamb, his name's Greg Lane. He's one of the co-founders of Tokyo Cheapo. Amazing. I've known him for almost 20 years now. He comes from a tech background, so he's more of the analytical side of things, and I come from more of a creative background, and then you put it together, you have a pretty good podcast here. So I think it'd be pretty good to have him maybe twice a month to talk about it here on Go, and then having that analytical approach with facts, I think will definitely help you in your trip. So let me know some feedback on this over-tourism issue, and this will make some of the discussions that we have that can help your trip ultimately, fact-based, a little bit better. Again, if you don't know tokyocheapo.com, that's the site that I think is probably the best site for information on events, things that are happening in Japan on a website type of format, but they've got a YouTube channel as well, and he's trying to do some great things as well. So it's nice to have friends that are in the same I guess industry, more or less. Industry. Shibuya, Aryo writes in here, Shibuya and Shinjuku late night can be definitely full of obnoxious gaijin foreigners. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Nicholas writes in here, Kawaguchi co-leadership sounds to be typical LDP corrupt so-and-sos. They should seek out people like John and Chris for help and better ideas. Nicholas, I think we can be, look, we live in Japan, but I think some of the old towns don't see people like us that really love Japan and live here, that we have a vested interest in Japan's success. And if you don't utilize some of our experiences and being able to cut diagonally through the Western side of things and the Japanese side of things, because I've been here for 27 years coming on soon, how are you going to be able to connect with the rationale? If you think that that CNN is the best outlet to get your message to tourists, there's nothing wrong with, well, CNN is, nobody's really watching CNN more than 12 hours. Like, they see the story and it's gone forever, all right? You need to find a way to reach the people that are the issue, and that would be on social media. You should take advantage of those that have a vested interest in your city's success, as I do, as I love Kawaguchi-ko, and I was just surprised that the mayor had that kind of a very old school. Vasily's here. John Dub is an international treasure. I don't know about that. Treasure is something that's valuable, or something that gets value. I don't know about that. But my heart is in the right place, and I want to help, and I certainly don't want to hurt, and I want to help find solutions. I want y'all to have, when you come to Tokyo, 1 second. When you come to Tokyo, I want you to have the best possible experience, of course, because if you like Tokyo, if you like Japan, you're going to come back here. If you come back here, that means that somebody did something pretty successful. Somebody did something that was pretty good. So I think Japan is doing an amazing job of getting people to fall in love with this country, but they're going to have a challenge to keep it up, because people get disillusioned pretty quickly with this kind of stuff. CNN is a go-to for establishment politicians. That'd be true. The softball questions that they've been asking are pretty one-sided here. So I get you there. I don't want to talk about politics, but in Japan right now, again, politics is part of an issue as well. I think that the new Prime Minister Ishiba is more hoping that he can take this to another level. He sees that there's going to be an economic impact on the shrinking small towns that need to have some kind of cash or business opportunity. What would get young people to leave Tokyo to go back to their hometown? Tourism, money, business opportunities. I'm starting just to see that happen a little by little right now. So I'm hoping in the next 48 months, that's 2 years, 12 months, 4 years, 48 months, let's say, we're going to see this really start to happen. I've seen just buds, just buds of economic growth on some of these small towns. And now we're starting to see those buds, either they're going to grow into something or they're going to fizzle out. And it's too early to tell. I think some of them will fizzle out, but a lot of them are going to grow into something special. And I think what Fuji Yoshida is doing is amazing. And what Kawaguchi-go is doing is like such the wrong direction. But that's my opinion. Going to Japan in 19 days, Vault Boy writes in here. By the way, how's the weather like in November? Well, right now, today I have on shorts and sandals, and it's unusually warm. But it's getting like cool and warm, just like spring is cool and warm. So fall is in the air. You can see the trees here starting to turn a little bit. There's some yellow on these trees. You see? So the best proof is to see it live right now. I think it's going to be in November, chillier. You're going to need a jacket. You could probably get by with shorts in some days, but you're going to want to have pants, light jacket. Layers is good. If you need to get a jacket, you can get it at Uniqlo for a couple thousand yen, or rent it. If you guys saw that episode, you can rent clothings in Japan. Go check that out on YouTube on my main channel. I did a Joey Tribbiani. It was actually quite hot. Yeah, you don't want to do that. But I'll do another episode on how to dress for fall, for November and December. A lot of people found a lot of value in that episode that I did, so I'll probably do another one there. You can just look around on the street and see how people are dressed, and that usually will give you an idea of the weather and how to pack. There's the Uniqlo right there. All right, everybody. That's all I got for you today. I gotta go back home, work on another episode. But I think the yen is almost at 150 to the dollar again. I think there's a lot of stuff in play. It's very hard to predict the markets. I think eventually the yen is going to get down to the 130s again, but Ishiba is a different prime minister. He's a different politician. He says different things. He's been saying some things like, don't hike the interest rates, don't change anything. So that's leading to the yen getting weaker. But there's stuff with the election in the US that can change and make the yen stronger again. So we'll see how this all plays out. But eventually, I think 150, pretty good exchange rate. I don't know if it's going to get too much bigger by now, but definitely, if you're booking a trip, it's not going to stay this way forever. It's not going to stay this cheap. It just can't. And take advantage of it while you can. Bib overalls too are good for cold weather. I do not doubt that. Like the overalls, yeah. I used to have the Oshkosh Bagash when I was 5 years old, but not anymore. I don't know. Are overalls in style? I don't know. Hey Ramon, I am in Ginza. I'm planning to go to Japan next year. How's the economy doing? Pretty good. Elderly seniority is never going to change. That's true. Since when I turned around 35 years old, got a little bit of gray hair, I noticed that Japanese respected me a little bit more. Maybe it's the fact that I speak Japanese a little bit more as well, but the older you get, the more you're respected, and that's a big deal here. I like the fact that will never change, and it's not a bad thing. It's got a lot of benefits, especially if you are one of those older people, but if you're a younger person who's very intelligent, sometimes it makes it a little bit challenging to get stuff done. You got to work harder sometimes. All right, everybody, take care from Ginza. I'll see you in another live stream tomorrow to take you to another area and talk about some issues that will definitely impact your trip and learn a little bit about Japan, because that's what I'm here for. Leave me a question below. See you again soon. Mata ne. And Kyoto is not a victim either. Kyoto is a victim of their own mistakes. I'm telling you, Kyoto's had years to fix their over-tourism problem. They never do it. Corruption, I don't know, but I think they're starting to, they actually have buses now where you can put the luggage underneath the bus on the other side of the Kyoto station that just started last week. So they're starting to do some good stuff here, but I don't think they're a victim. They could have fixed this a long time ago. Mata ne. That's the final word.